the other thing I think we should think about here is the impact of those distributed energy systems, whether that's on home level or a bit larger level, in developing countries, whether, and I'm particularly thinking of Africa here. The interesting thing about Africa is, when you look at phones, there was no landline phone infrastructure in Africa, or very, very limited. However, with the coming of cell phones, and you only had to put up one tower to service, I don't know, several thousand people, if not more, maybe 10,000 people. It became much easier for people to buy cell phones there, and I think distributed energy does exactly the same thing. You don't need the same grid connection. You can, have solar and batteries at your house, or at a village. You can have, solar and batteries to be able to power, small villages and I think that's going to have a huge impact on reducing poverty, improving people's health, improving people's, greater well-being and greater economic benefit in places like Africa or parts of Asia or wherever.
Yeah, the challenge though, the power companies and the regulators, everybody will defend that from happening because of the stranded asset risk, right? Because
no doubt,
the power companies has an obligation to connect you. Do you have a right to disconnect? But that's not a very straightforward case, because they will come and argue that, okay, I put all this connection asset for you. You cannot just say, sorry, see you later. What happens to my asset? The regulators will write off. Then shareholders, many cases, government shareholders. It gets very complicated, no?
Oh, it does. But, the threat in the past was, well, if you didn't pay your bill, we'll cut you off. Well, okay, go cut me off. See what I care, So that's it. Just don't pay your bill.
No, but I think, but if you don't pay your bill, they will argue that the supply charge keeps on accumulating on yours. So because of bundling. So you may not pay the energy component because you didn't consume anything, but the supply charge, which is giving you distributed access. Yeah, I'm sure that the power companies will get more and more protective. This is putting my regulatory hat. I used to be a pricing manager with the regulator. Yeah. So,
I think that's a big issue, and I think a lot of the utilities have frankly got to get their shit together, because if you keep saying to different large users, and I'm thinking large users here for large warehouses charging trucks, that there's a 3-year wait. Guess what? These distributed energy companies come in, they set up your solar, they set it up, and they take all the profit away, and it's up in 6 months, a year, it's done, and they don't even need the larger connection. So or that larger connection can be scaled right back. So I think in some ways you're right. It's a big threat, and I'm not really sure that they understand that completely.
Yeah, I mean, they always put the spin. I've seen in academic journals as well, they will always say, oh, it's the rich people who are getting the solar and the battery. And if you do let them go, all the rich will leave, and then the distribution companies will be holding all the people who are unable to pay, so nobody should be allowed to go. I think that's the argument they use, right. Letting people go from the regulatory asset base.
Yep. It's I think it's going to be interesting times as that develops over the next sort of 20 or 30 years, that's for sure. So
because telecom worked out okay, because somebody devised the idea of auctioning the bandwidth, right? There was a natural monopoly still. So the guy who was running landline phone got that, so they become gradually mobile phone. But to put a solar, you don't need any bandwidth or a battery, right?
No,
so there's no natural monopoly there.
You can completely self-contain it. So
yes,
yeah, that's the thing, right? And I mean, if you look at sort of big power users, could be supermarkets, could be whatever, maybe they keep their connection, but 90% of their power actually comes from the solar, from their solar thing. So
we hope you enjoyed this episode of Energypreneurs. To continue listening to this conversation, please visit us at Energypreneurs. Thank you. See you next time.